Hi, all. Thanks so much for watching the Stephanie Feals show. I'm Stephanie Feals, and I'm here with Henry Kacprzyk. Did I get that right?
You did.
Okay, at the Pittsburgh Zoo and Aquarium. And I am really excited because even though I've done hundreds of interviews, lots of them with healthcare, lots of them with other exciting people, and lots of them with news, I have not done a video or an interview for the Stephanie Feals show on location. But it occurred to me when I met Henry recently, I wanted him to be on the show. I was like, wait a second, I don't have to do this via Zoom. So I'm super excited to talk to Henry and hear about his experience working at the zoo for 43 years. So with that, Henry, how do you start working at a zoo and then have this amazing 43-year career?
There's some luck. Now, in my senior year of high school, I decided I wanted to work with animals, and I went to the high school counselors, and really right up the street from the zoo is the high school I graduated from, Peabody High School at the time, and no one could tell me how to do that. And I gave up on it. Going out of high school, I decided I got to make a choice, and I decided I wanted to go teach. I picked science and biology as an interest, and I went to teach, and found while it was my freshman year, going through education programs and taking classes, there was a program at Penn State that was called Ag Education. So I transferred from California, PA, to California State College at the time, to Penn State. Started working with horses, cows, and pigs. Applied for many jobs working with animals, not just looking at zoo jobs, but couldn't get them. I was getting discouraged. I was really getting discouraged. And one day the zoo job opened up, and it was just run by the city, and it was civil service. And went to the civil service desk, thought I had a strong resume, filled out that application, turned it in. The guy reads it over and rejects it. He said, "You didn't meet all the qualifications." And I had worked at the racetrack with horses. I had, built up my resume working with animals, and not lions and tigers, but nonetheless, I thought it was a pretty strong resume. And he said, "You need 1 year experience working with wild animals." Now you had to be a city of Pittsburgh resident, and
Oh my God,
how many
you're a wild
yeah,
animal.
how many
You need
residents?
to find the people who have like the illegal tigers in their backyard or something.
So
Are you going to believe their certification?
my response to that was, "Buddy, I've been teaching in the city schools for 3 years. 2 years as a substitute. How wild do you want it?" And he started laughing. He put it in the good pile. He pulled out a reject pile. And I had to take an exam and 100 questions on animals, and then get interviewed, and got this job. And I'm thinking, this is fantastic. I mean, and I loved it. I mean, honestly, I know I love my job. Over my entire 43 years working as an animal keeper, as like a level 2 keeper, as assistant general curator, and then later as curator of reptiles and kids kingdom, I get up in the morning and I don't try to figure out how to play hooky. I look forward to going to work. So that's my definition of, I know I love my job.
I think that's amazing. I mean, because there aren't many times that people can say that every day you wake up. But I don't know. They do sound easier than high school kids are substituting. That does not
So
sound.
I'm talking high school substitute.
That's wild. No. So you started when you first joined. What were you? What was your career path at the zoo?
So I started out as an animal keeper. So I was fortunate to get in, and I worked at the time at what's called the Twilight Zoo, and there's a little, underground. It was actually big underground exhibits because it was dark. It was originally meant to be like a nocturnal house. And I come into work, and yeah, you didn't get much training back then. You come into work, and you're expected to, clean and help medicate, feed the animals, and all these things. And I'm going, "Oh, you're gonna be working with taking care of the potto," and I'm like, "It's a potto."
That's what I was going to ask you.
There's a little prosimian that comes from Africa, cute as can be, and that's supposedly has venomous spines, but I don't know. Never noticed that, but friendly enough. Then they had galagos, and I had giant fruit bats. The bats were like this long and wingspans of 4 feet, and oh, you got to go catch these animals up, and it was on a job training. I got bit a lot
Oh
when
my
I
God.
started, but nonetheless, it just opened my world. The animals I never experienced, and from there, I did that for about 2.5 years in that area. Then I get up to, this is the old zoo. This is the 1898 building, and I moved up to that area, and started working with cats and a number of different animals. Ended up working when we first opened our cat department, our current cat exhibits. That was in October of '83. I was relief keeper in there, and I did that for a year. Then ended up working elephants and giraffes, and eventually got promoted to assistant general curator, which I oversaw all the keeper staff in the zoo. And then in '94, I moved up one more level, and I was curator of Kids Kingdom wasn't there yet. It was Children's Zoo and Reptiles, and eventually it was Kids Kingdom. So I currently work as a retired person as an education specialist for education department.
That is amazing. What a fun career. I mean, it was such a big difference to go from bats to big cats.
And as much of a change that it can be for someone like a keeper. Think about the vet staff that works here. You got veterinarians that have to be able to take care of a crocodile, polar bear, uh, big cats, elephant, fish. They're the ones that really challenge it. When you come out of vet school, I mean, you can do a preceptorship at a zoo and get your feet wet a little bit, but a lot of it is communicating with others outside, networking. There are vets who are specialists in crocodiles. And you got a problem with a crocodile, don't try to go it alone. They eventually, may develop their skills, but you make a call or you email somebody. I got this problem. Because no one can know everything. I
No,
mean, think about a human medicine. Now we got people just do like surgery on one knee. I just do the right knee. I mean, we're specialized. These guys have to be masters of the animal kingdom.
which is crazy too because they're on different continents. It's not even like you can become a specialist like, okay, I'm familiar with the diseases that are in North America. You have the entire world of things here.
Yeah, they're challenged. I mean, you're going to be staying up on your journals and staying in communication and getting it's just it's constantly evolving because what we learn, about the animals is just evolving. Medications. What's proper medication to treat this and this animal? What's that dose? There's a lot to it. So as much as it can be challenged for an animal keeper or curator, they're the ones that really have to be on the ball.
I think it takes everybody 'cause it's remarkable looking at all the pieces. And, when we visited the zoo recently, we were just looking around and there are so many things from the feeding to the veterinary to the breeding programs. So when you were curator, what were the things, what are those goals when you're trying to decide how to build a zoo? Because I'm sure some people are like, well, I want to see this, but it's not that easy.
Right. So we recognize, our mission at the zoo is to connect people to wildlife and inspire communities to engage in conservation so wildlife will be around for future generations. So what we try to do is bring in animals that, I don't know how else to put it, serve as a hook, like something that you really, I got the red panda. You see the red panda, people just love that animal. And, you may talk about the conservation, why you need to conserve that animal. But then right next to it's the Komodo dragon, and I, try to bring that in. The zoos have evolved from uh, being users of animals. Back in the 40s, 50s, and even into the 60s, professionalism started creeping in late 60s, early 70s. But if they brought in animals in, and they, people were so wow, we got gorilla in, gorilla dies, they paid to get another one. There, conservation and breeding wasn't the way they did it. They just displayed. So they were here for recreation. It wasn't education. It was just recreation and, getting out and seeing these animals and moving on to the next thing, not learning anything in science or just like gorilla. Now, we evolved to being trying to create replicas of the of their habitats and the exhibits, and then uh, putting information out and so you'll learn more about them, why it's important to have them, what zoo some areas will have, what our zoos involved in the program. Most people don't realize, we're here, we're fine with having a recreational impact, but we also have a very strong education program here at the zoo. And I honestly, being in the zoo industry all these years, I couldn't justify a zoo that doesn't make education the number one component of what we do. And we do that well here in Pittsburgh. And then there's the conservation aspect. We participate in conservation programs. When I started, there was a sea change of how we handle the animals and breed the animals and why we breed them. Before that, we bred the Pittsburgh Zoo would breed tigers. It's sold tiger stuff. There were money to be made, and that was money can corrupt, and so genetics was falling short. 1980, a new proposal came up with the gentleman, Dr. Yoli Seal, and he said, "Why don't we start a tiger species survival program?" His goal was to flip, take the whole profit out of it. Let's put genetics ahead of everything else. So his goal was we could breed tigers. We want to have a base number of animals, breed them over 100 years, and only have a 10% gene drop. 90% heterozygosity, basically keeping his animals genetically wild. Ultimate goal would be, because of what we're doing, we're not trying to make circus animals or pets. We want these animals to be genetically wild. So if opportunities come to release animals back in the wild, we think their success may be possible because we have not tried to, you know, breed dogs. Which
But
think
you
about it.
do have a dog in the elephant thing.
We do have two dogs in
You
the.
have two.
Yeah, we have two. Yes. Yeah.
Why?
Well, they were part of like they're herd dogs, and then so they used to send them out. They don't. I don't think they do. They're quite old now, but they used to send them out and they'd bring the elephants in.
Well, that's funny. Yeah, but yeah, so it is totally different than that. So you're saying that they are bred in a way that they could potentially, if they're, what would have to happen for tigers to be able to be released in the wild? Would you then, we have to get that population up to a certain point?
They're and currently in the tiger population, we have the Siberian tigers. We call them armor tigers because they're Siberia's huge, and there are only 500 left in one little strip. Uh, so that would have to be stabilized, and it's in Russia. Um, they do a good job. I mean, honestly, but they are the Amur River separates that part of Russia from China. The Chinese call it the Black Dragon River, but that they still poach. Chinese come in and poach and use for traditional Chinese medicine some of the components of the tiger. So when a river freezes, they cross over. So you need to secure that area, or set up another place that would allow you to build up, you know, a group of tigers. But it's not simple, and that's why it hasn't been done yet. But we have done release programs with other animals. We participated in programs for breeding red wolves, and we're going back into that program. And red wolves were extinct in the wild, and they were zoos collectively got together and breed them and get them back into the wild in North Carolina. Uh, it hasn't been as easy as you think because human impact is really impact. There have been wolves that get hit by cars, and they have to learn. And one of the things that we realize we're releasing these animals. When we work with animals, typically we try to gain their trust. But if you're doing animals going for release, we want to be mean,
Mm,
ugly, and have them
be
be
afraid.
afraid of humans. And you wouldn't want a wolf come out. Oh, humans feed me. I'll go up to this kid at the bus stop. So it is a different way of raising the animals. We participated in a program for releasing golden lion tamarins into Brazilian coastal forests. There were less than, I think, 170 animals left. Collectively, AZA zoos got together and turned over ownership. All those animals that are in the zoos, all these zoos that owned them, and turned them over to ownership of the Brazilian government. We would breed them. Offspring were going to be released. There are now over, I think, over 500 animals now. So it can work. Big cats, it's a challenge because they're big carnivores.
That,
But these are programs that have evolved, and so I'm very proud of the impact zoos are making. Not just breeding for, like I said, people come out for recreation. We're breeding with a purpose, and the purpose is to maintain genetics with goals of getting some of these animals back into the wild.
that's amazing. And then you have the sea turtles too. That's another one that you do. You have the hospital for them, don't you?
We bring in the sea turtles. They're cold stunned, so generally we're collaborating with New England Aquarium, but the animals, when there's a quick snap change of cold weather or the water comes up, the Gulf Stream's warmer and there's a shift in the water. Some of these animals end up in a state of suspended animation because it's got so cold they don't function. They don't really hibernate. But just think about that kind of temperature drop, and they are collected and by New England Aquarium and are sent to a number of different aquariums within certain mileage. Because and we've been participating in that program for years, so we bring these animals back to health. And this is in partnership with the federal government. They're deeply involved with this, and when the animals check out and they're healthy enough to be released, we usually do a collective release back into the ocean. So animals that they'll die, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of them. We're not talking like 5 or 10. Now we can only take so many here at Pittsburgh, but again, there's other zoos and aquariums that participate. So we are affecting hundreds on these releases. So it is a nice program, and I think it's one when the public hears it, they love sea turtles, and they love the fact we're doing something that makes a difference.
My daughter was born in South Carolina, and we're from Pittsburgh, but we moved around just because we like to move. And so she was born in South Carolina, and we moved home before she started school. But that was one thing that we always did is went to the aquarium in Charleston, and they have a big turtle hospital there. But a lot of theirs is repairing things that have injuries from boats or stuff like that. So she was excited when she came back home to see that there were still sea turtles because we didn't expect to
And
see them.
we have one that was a boat injury, I believe,
Oh yeah.
and he's here because he's deemed non-releasable.
Mm.
He can't. I don't know what the technical term. I call it bubble butt. He starts to float with his shell going up, and they had weighted him, and they got him. They trained him, and they got him to swim with weights on there, and he was doing really well. And then he was deemed releasable, and federal government gave an okay as well. And then he went to release, and they said he's not going to make it. So he's living the life here.
Yeah.
He, but that's the alternative was that animal was going to. So yeah, it was a more unusual one that we received. Wasn't a full study.
And then you've told me that the whole process of getting animals is not like you can just go buy an animal. There's a committee, a nationwide committee that has these animals. So what is that process like? Because you shared some fun stories about getting red pandas, bearded dragons.
Yeah. So as I talked about that species survival plan with tigers, that's the first one. But we developed them for red pandas, Komodo dragon, and others. There's a committee that makes decisions. So the decisions are multiple, like who's going to get Komodo dragons, who's going to get red pandas, who gets to breed them. Because you can't, every zoo can't make independent decisions on breeding them. Because what would happen is you have a baby boomer generation, all the animals aging and taking up all the holding spaces. Like for tigers, there's probably less than 500 holding spaces in these zoos that participate. If they're all old and they have no breeding young, so healthy populations look like a pyramid, and oldest at the top. So decisions are made by that committee. And I had a Komodo dragon that was getting up in years, and I was worried he wasn't going to live long. Live about a year longer than my first request to the Komodo SSP to get another Komodo dragon. And I contacted the chairperson and said, "You'll be like 18th on the list," which told me I was not going to have a dragon. If this dragon passes, I'm going to have a big empty exhibit, and my boss is going to give me a you know. So I'm what animal have I never worked with? Because dragons seem like unattainable. I did make a call to a guy that they had in LA who was an acquaintance of mine. He's a curator of reptiles at LA Zoo, and I asked him if he had a clutch out or hatch there. I think there were 10 or 12 of them. I don't remember. Any chance to get one of those dragons? And he's the vice chair on the species survival plan for Komodo dragons. He got told no, I can't bypass that. But anyway, I was begging him, and he couldn't get it. So I said, "What animal did I want to work with? I've never had." And red panda came to mind. So I made this call for red panda, and I was told I was like eighth on the list, and it didn't sound great either. But the woman asked me again. She's down in Knoxville Zoo, and I said, she said, "What zoo again?" I said, "Pittsburgh." I'm moving you to number one. I'm here. So, sometimes I meet somebody and I think, have a drink with them. Maybe they like me after that. And I said, so I had to ask them, do I know this person? Because like the name wasn't, familiar to me. And I asked her, I said, do I know you? Why'd you move me up to number one? She laughed because, you know, obviously I was perplexed. And she said, "What you don't know about me? I'm from Toronto, Canada originally, but I came to school at Carnegie Mellon, and I came to your zoo many Saturdays. I loved your zoo, and I've been waiting for somebody to call asking for red panda. So now I got red panda. I'm like excited. All right, she's gonna, and they do master planning every year, every 2 years, depending on the species survival plan. They had already shifted animals around, but she was gonna make it happen for me, and she did. Um, what I didn't know is the guy had begged from LA for Komodo Dragon. He was going to send 10 of his hatchlings over to Europe, and they were going to send 10 animals from Europe to the United States. They're different genetic bloodlines, so it's a great coup to have these animals. What I didn't know is he calls me up and he says, you're getting 2 dragons from the Prague Zoo in the Czech Republic. I'm like, I do not. He, so I asked him, I said, what do I need to do? There's federal paperwork. I need the importation paperwork. I got to arrange for transportation, pay for transportation. What is my obligation for these animals? And this is coming up quick. He said, you promised to take me to a Steeler game. So I knew, and I did say that to him because I knew he was born and raised in Southern California. I knew him from, we both worked at Reptiles, and I knew he was a Steeler fan, so I threw that out there as a bone, and so I had to get him tickets, and thankfully we did get tickets for him that were right on the front seats, and came to my house, drank all my alcohol, and we had a blast. But it was a nice way again. So I had red panda and komodos, and I split the exhibit in. There was one big exhibit split in two, and they live side by side and get along.
Is the Komodo Dragon then the best bargain in the zoo?
As far
It
as
was just an exchange for Steelers tickets.
oh well, because when I talk about the species survival plan and money isn't a factor, the only thing you really required to pay for is the transportation costs. And transportation costs actually from Czech Republic here would be substantial. You did not have to pay for it. So it was only the ticket. So yes, it was probably the best bargain.
So that's fascinating. So you guys don't pay for the animals.
We don't pay for animals. So
Who pays for the animals?
nobody. So that was the whole design of the species survival plan is take away profit as motivating for breeding. Because if I can make money and I'll use a I couldn't stand watching show the Tiger King. And these people are breeding them and they're selling them and they're just not doing it for the betterment of the animals. They're doing it for the betterment of their pockets. And so we don't. That's all that. So somebody has to pay for the animals that come to the organization. So the sending institution has no obligation to pay for costs. It's a receiving institution, and it's generally. I mean, on some animals, it doesn't amount to much. It can be several $100s. When you move a big
It's
animal,
less than my lab.
well, you move a big animal like a polar bear, and you're going to fly to one. That's a whole different thing. Oftentimes, we hope that we can entice somebody like FedEx or somebody to donate that, and they'll sell it somewhat on their end too, as uh, for their staff and everything like a morale boost. So we're participating in bringing in a polar bear from so and so to Pittsburgh. And so on big things that we try to do, they can't always get free ride, so to speak. But
That goes back to the soft skills that you had to have in the beginning that aren't things that you've learned in school. You need to have those connections. There's so much more into go into being a successful zookeeper than there are just like, okay, do I know how to handle the animals?
exactly, and we develop these connections. We attend conferences annually, and we get on committees, and we start to know people, and it does help a lot. Um, and we've come a long way from the backdoor bartering kind of thing. It is sort of open, but there's you make relationships, and some people be more willing to try to work for you with you as opposed to these are the rules. You're number 18 on the list, so you get lucky sometimes.
What is your favorite animal that you've ever had at the zoo, and what is one that you wish you could have that you've never been able to get?
Wow. Well, favorite animal. I had a lot of favorite animals, and I put this in a context. People ask me, "What's your favorite animal?" and they're looking at species. I've had favorite individuals. I've had favorite orangutans, favorite red panda, favorite sea lion, favorite, and I've never narrowed it down to species. Favorite elephant, I can think of like those kind of things. But I love when I worked elephants. It was like one of my favorite animal keeper jobs. I love working big cats. But it was because of the animal. The analogy I make is you have a pet dog, and your favorite pet dog is your pet dog that you have. Now, there's a lot of neighbors have pet dogs, but they're not your favorite. So I think it's normal for us to have like the individual animals as opposed to like the species. So, what animals have I wanted to bring in? That's a good one because I never really gave that much thought. Um,
Mine are typical things that I've never seen. I've never seen a panda in real life. I
oh,
don't think I've seen a koala in real life.
well, I did bring koala here. See,
Where was it? This must have been in the time when I was moving around the nation.
we were challenged on our 100th anniversary in '98. No, was it? Oh, it was '98. Yeah, it was '98. So, and we were challenged to bring in some new things. Just they could be temporary, whatever. So I brought in a white gator, which that was an interesting thing because I had made. It's a connections thing. There's another connection. I call down to Audubon Zoo in New Orleans, and I'd like to get. And they did a rent-a-gator for a while. You can rent these gators, these white gators, right? They're using it to make money, so it wasn't what the SSP kind of approach. There are so few of them, and I called and I was informed by a guy down there. I'm trying not to use people's names much, but I was informed by him that they don't do that program. But Henry, for you, I'm going to do it, and you can tell his name's my two bosses because you can tell her that the only reason Pittsburgh Zoo's getting white gators is because of Henry. That's the only reason. And I'm going to go to the board. I'm going to make this happen. So I'm excited. I got this coup, and we do this whole marketing campaign. We're going to have this. It's like it's out there. It's rolled out. It's on buses. It's on sides.
I'm
Goes to
getting
the
worried, Henry. I'm getting worried.
goes to the bayou. Well, here's what happens. He calls me up, and I didn't know if I knew, but I didn't. I thought, again, I thought, do I know you? And I asked him that question, and I did know him, but he used to be at the Bronx Zoo. I knew him, so he was down there, and he had a pretty common name, and I didn't. So later on, he came in a conference. So anyway, animal comes up with lead poisoning. But right before he sent, there's doing a pre-ship exam, which what we normally do. We do a pre-ship exam. We do exam on arrival to make sure animals are healthy. And what they had been doing is feeding it nutria, which is a nuisance animal and introduced species into the bayous, and there's lead shot in them. And so this animal had a lead level in its blood that would kill a mammal, a human. I can't send this animal. I can't send it. And it's like literally ruled. So I'm scrambling. Well, I get a lead on the guy who has a gator farm, and he has the most white alligators in the world in his gator farm. And he rents them out to some places for $5,500 a month. A month. And so I call him up, and we become kind of chatty. He wants to come up. He wants to come behind. I don't know. You can stay at my place. I'll get him. How do you down? So you go out with him. He wants to hunt deer or something. And we're chatting it up, and he finally goes, I'll send you a gator, and he's going to charge me $5,000 a month. I said, wait a minute, wait a minute. You're breeding these animals. You breed gators for hide and meat. Supplies and they make sausage out of them. Yeah, you got to go to Louisiana. It's different. But anyway, I said, how many do you have in a hothouse? They have a big hothouse. I was explaining to him, I'm doing him a favor. I said, I'm not going to charge you to take the animal. He goes, what do you mean? I want 5,000. I said, look, how many do you have in your hothouse? He goes, there's about 40 gators I put in. I said, how long do you raise them? About 8 months. I said, how many do you put in with that white gator? Oh, you can't do. You put them in another one in, or they'll kill that white gator. I said, so you got that honor? I said, so what do you get? What are you getting paid for? So I did. I'm on the phone. I said, so I'm going to save you $119,000 by taking that white gator. and he goes, what do you mean? I explained to him. I said, by losing one breeding facility, you're losing this much money. So, I got the white gator come up, and we had him for like 18 months.
I love
And
that.
we got the koala in. That was another stretch, bringing for so that was a brought the koala in, and it was where our currently our meerkats are, and we had that animal for I think 18 months as well. And that was a pain because they eat eucalyptus, and eucalyptus does not grow in Pittsburgh. So twice a week, I had to get eucalyptus flown in either from Florida or San Diego. It was $500 a shipment twice a week, $1,000. It was a trip to the airport. They didn't have Uber back then, and yeah, it was a pain. But people loved it. I mean, I was surprised the emotion Wallace inspired to so many people because they they're women that were crying. I mean, I've seen on multiple occasions. I never thought I'd see one. I'm like, oh, it's like a religious experience for them. But I'm glad I got to play some part in, bringing those here, and that led me to being invited to do uh, some conservation work with koalas in Australia. So, having done this with San Diego Zoo, and I got invited to go on this, um, do some field work with koalas. In the first 3 days I'm there, I attended a koala conference, and then one guy's noticed I got a crocodile on a necklace, and he goes, "What's with that crocodile on a necklace?" And I said, "I work with crocodiles in the States." He goes, "I work with them here in Australia." Yeah, nice. Okay, so for 3 days, he keeps on saying, "My boss would get a kick out of you. You should meet my boss." I mean, so he's been telling me I got a vacation planned after 2 weeks field work. I'm not changing my plans. I'm like, oh. So third day, we get done with our training early, and the next day we're going to go into the bush, start doing the actual work. He says, "You want to go out snake hunting?" And I said, "Sure." And I guess snake hunting meant looking for snakes. Well, I see a snake going through the leaf litter, and they got the most deadliest snakes in the world in Australia. And I see a snake going through a leaf litter, and bang, I reached down and grabbed him by the back of his head and picked it up. I go, "What kind of snake is?" And, it was a big, maybe 4 foot, 5 foot. He goes, "Oh, Jesus." He goes, "Henry, it's Australian copperhead. They could kill you. They're not like a U.S. copperhead. This is a totally different species." And he goes, "My boss is gonna kick. Steve would get a kick out of you." And I said, "Steve who?" "Steve Irwin. He's a crocodile hunter." So I changed my plans, and I stayed at his place and got to meet our education curator was with me, and she came along, and we got to do anything we wanted with all the animals except for one crocodile aggro. But I got the thing that I talk about the most about that whole visit with was they had a tortoise picked up on the Galapagos Islands by Charles Darwin. So this animal's from 1835, picked up on the HMS Beagle, and I'm feeding it hibiscus flowers. I'm thinking, like, what a connection! What a connection! And it seems like such a bygone era, but this animal has spanned all this time, and it's been documented. So this wasn't a marketing thing. There was a book written in 2005, I think, that followed that animal wherever it went. So it was pretty cool.
That's amazing. I love that you just accidentally met Steve Irwin because you picked up a snake that could have killed you.
Well, yeah, I don't know if I'm the smartest guy, but I have been bit a lot in my career, and it's because I take risks. I generally don't take risks with venomous snakes. I've never been bit by venomous snakes. Never been bit by the Komodo Dragon either. But um, sometimes like big snake comes in. I wonder if it's animal picking up. It bites me. I know it really isn't. And my wife says, "Why
I
did
was just gonna say, what did your wife say? Oh my God, what did you
she?"
get bitten by today?
Yeah, I've had more than a few hospital visits. She's gotten frustrated a few times with, some of being injured. One was when she was like 8 months pregnant, had to come to the emergency room, and I was supposed to have a date with her that day.
You instead ended up at one of the local hospitals.
So she's like, she'd get mad sometimes. The one she got the maddest, I got hurt, couldn't help move. We bought a new house, and that was like, she's that was in 1989. She still talks about it.
She's going to think that you're actively getting bit at these pivotal points
That's like
in
she
life.
acted like I was, did that on purpose, so I didn't have to move. Like I didn't have to help move. I wanted to move. I just
Does she have an equally adventurous job?
no. She was in. She worked in the healthcare business, and she did development, raised money for West Penn Hospital.
Oh, that's good. So you guys can mastermind how to fundraise whenever you're like, "Oh my god, I need this animal. How do
Yeah,
we get this?"
she did that for a while, and she loved it, and it was complete opposite as far as I'm taught, as far as careers. I mean, she was a different level, made more money. I had more fun at my job. I think I was, I'm ahead.
I think you're probably a good team. So what is this when you tell people in your regular life who are doing these other jobs that are more common? Do they think that these stories are wild, or are they just do they want to be at the zoo to witness this?
Now, like my friends, and as a Pittsburgher, I still hang out with many of the guys I went to kindergarten, grade school with. It's a Pittsburgh thing, but we all grew up together. And here's what I know: a lot of them had jobs that paid better, but I enjoyed my job more. And so, like when it's come time to retire, a lot of them would retire early, and they didn't hate their jobs. It's just, it's like they ran their course, and but they knew. They said, "You like what you do. You should just keep on doing it." That was like advice from them post their retirement, because oftentimes you think it's great to retire, but what do you fill your 7 days with?
People live
Yeah, and
so long
I
now.
was actually being counseled, stay as long as you can do it. Like if you're healthy and you're still enjoying it, why retire?
And you're back even
I
after you
know.
retire.
So, and that is truly the best of both worlds, because I get to do what I want to do most days a week, and 2 days a week I come in and talk to people like you in front of an animal exhibit, and I enjoy that. Um, People walk away with a little bit more knowledge, and I get compliments from people. Just today I was out in front of people, and they're, this is great. We didn't know they had this program. This is the best zoo visit ever, and that's a quote. And
It is a very nice zoo. I mean, I love that we have this, and it's so funny because I have no idea what the microphone is going to sound like. Because again, this is the first one I've done on location in a long time. But there's a road right there, so we're in this urban environment. When I was here with my mom and my daughter a week ago, we're like, "You're there, lost in this world, going up, down, around, through the trees. You don't see any of that." And you wrote, I don't even know if you don't hear it or if you just tune it out, but it's so crazy because you're just like right there in the middle of the city.
I mean, we're literally what 30 feet away from the road,
We can
so
in the car if we're good.
it is louder here than when you go through the zoo. And if you look at not only the animals but the landscaping, we have a horticulture team, and they put a lot of effort into you know bringing beauty in. You can see the butterflies over right next to us on a pollinator garden, and that dampens some of those sounds and everything that come from outside the zoo perimeter. So, uh, you know, I don't think people realize what a nice horticulture experience you can have at the zoo. We're here to see the animals. I don't think they get a true appreciation for that aspect of it as almost a botanical garden.
And you even said when we were talking last time that people come just to walk. So
Yeah,
it's a nice way for people to exercise in a safe, contained environment too.
it is. People come out, and their UPMC walkers come out every twice a month on like a Wednesday, I think. But even myself at my age, I like to come out and walk around and get my steps in, say hello to the animals. I happen to know some of them, so I stop as I walk around, and stop at favorites, and basically I talk to them, and but it gives me exercise, and I look, oh, I got my steps in for the day. That was one of the things, side benefit of this job my entire life is it's somewhat physical. Now, curators nowadays do a lot of their work sitting on a computer. Um, Computers didn't become a big part of you know curator role until like the mid '90s, maybe. They started transferring all the animal records over. There are programs that allowed you to do things, whether it's you know vet records or daily report records and all those things, and they get initially are banked, just shared in with your zoo, but then they've been networked. Any zoo can access your information about, if we're sending an animal to San Diego, they can come on and see the medical history and all. So it's just evolved. Now curators spend most of their time on a computer, very little time doing the hands-on stuff. Now, when I was coming up, it was a lot of hands-on. I love to catch animals, for instance, and I'm so good at it. I think I'm older, but I know how the animals behave, and the goal is catching an animal without them getting hurt, without that staff getting hurt. I'm at the bottom of the list. So if I get hurt, it's just another trip to the hospital. But I sort of like that. And some people in today's world they shy away from it. You want me to go catch that animal? I challenged with some of my staff once. They were doing enrichment, which a lot of enrichment involves a lot of different things, and they were doing enrichment. They wanted we want to try to blow bubbles for kangaroos, and I said, let's blow bubbles for kangaroos if you catch one, and they did. They took the challenge. They said, okay, we'll catch the next time we have to catch them up because it was like me and another guy would catch them all the time. And I'm like, you guys got to learn to do these things. I mean, people have defaulted to chemical restraint, but that can be deadly in an animal. And when you got to just do something that you got to do a quick check on an animal and um, release it, that's easier than knock them down. Anesthesia can be, when I talked about earlier about knowing all these different animals, different species. What's your dose going to be for a kangaroo? What's your dose going to be for a wallaby? What's your dose going to be for a polar bear? It's not textbook. There's things they learn, but it's not textbook. Humans are one species, and medical doctors in the human field have it easier than somebody having to deal with animals.
What don't people know about working in a zoo or being part of a zoo? So I feel like there are so many things that go into creating a successful zoo, and other, maintaining an animal alone has a billion components. So what don't people realize?
So the thing about that I would love the public to know about the zoo is how involved we are in conservation, not just in breeding conservation. There's in 7 continents. We have programs in 7 continents. We got red panda. We support research with in the fall on red pandas. And I don't even know them all. I'll be honest with you. But all that being said, we do so much, and people don't realize when they come to the zoo, part of their paying for admission goes to big cat conservation, elephant conservation in Africa, those kind of things, and they don't realize that. And I really wish we could get that message out more. Um, it's vital to the survival of these animals in the wild. It's not just our zoo, because that's what makes it even stronger. Collectively, there's a number of zoos that sometimes participate. We have our individual projects. We have projects that collaboratively work with maybe dozens of other zoos, and they really make impact. Because it's a lot more money that way. Um, so that's probably the thing I want the public to know the most about zoos.
What is your philosophy for your keys to success? Because you take advantage of all the moments. Nothing seems to miss you.
Well, I think the one thing, whatever you're doing, not just related to animals, you should be willing to learn and continue to learn and grow. The field evolves, and what was done in 1960 wasn't done in 1970, it wasn't done in 80, and there's a constant evolution in this field. And you got to be willing to learn every day almost, and I think that's a vital commitment you have to make in this field. It's not, it's just like human medicine in some ways. It constantly evolves in the same area. What's the new techniques? What are the animals that need the resources that we can provide? Because you have to triage things sometimes. We love all animals, but which one do you got to focus on?
Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you feel like nobody's asked you, or is like a something that you should be saying? Or
Over the years, I used to do a thing on when internet just was coming out. I was at a Ask Henry page or something. I used to get lots of emails from kids and things like asking me about also many different animals. And um, I don't know if I said it to you, but when I'm in front of an exhibit, sometimes trying to get engaged in some conversation, sometimes say, "Do you have any questions about red panda, Komodo dragon, tigers, any of the animals at the zoo, or life in general?" But I don't answer questions on taxes. I have my limitation, and my wife does my taxes. So anyway, I just I feel that I'm knowledgeable in a lot of the way I put it. I know a little about a lot of things. So one of the generalities people make of me is I'm an animal person, and there's more to me than that. And I have other interests. I read a lot. Growing up in Lawrenceville, 3 miles down the river, I happened to be lucky enough to grow up 2 doors from the library, and I spent a lot of time in the library, and I still go to the library. So people think I'm reading animal books. No, I read a lot. I read. I love to read. Historical books. I like to read. I got a eclectic. Reading, but I'm multifaceted. But everybody associates. You're an animal guy. You're an animal expert. I'm much more than that.
Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.